Ghost stories? No, we don't really have those around here. But there's the story of Jacob Emory. If you really want to know, I'll tell you. Just don't interrupt. I don't have the patience for it. Jacob Emory was the kind of guy you'd never notice. Not because he was a bad kid. In fact, most folks around here thought he was the most reliable person you could find for odd jobs. But he never stuck with anything. He'd try his hand at everything, fixing cars, working radios, managing stores. But he'd never settle. When people asked why, he'd always say, it just wasn't enough. Most of his friends eventually stopped asking. It was no surprise when Jacob decided to leave town. He went abroad for 6 or 7 years. No one's quite sure where. He came back changed. Jacob, who'd always been so dull, was now all smiles and energy. He'd brought back this souvenir, a black stick, about the length of a pencil, but with the texture of chalk. We all wondered why something so simple had him so excited. Then he showed us. He took a piece of paper, drew a crude circle with that stick, and the circle dropped, like a stone, onto the border of the paper. It didn't leave the paper but rolled around on it like an old movie projector image. I know how crazy that sounds, but I swear, I saw it. We all saw it. Jacob passed the paper around, and as we tilted it, the circle moved. He kept drawing, sketching out stick figures in various scenes, performing all sorts of wild antics. We were stunned. He said he planned to put on shows, draw whatever the crowd wanted. He convinced us it was safe, ethical, and would draw attention to our little town. Poor Jacob. If I'd known then what I know now, I'd have snapped that stick in half right there. With no money for big advertising, he made flyers. Not just any flyers. His little figures jumped and danced to catch people's attention. His first show drew a crowd of 60, maybe more, and the shows were incredible. Someone would shout out a scene, and Jacob's hand would fly across the wall like a bird. He drew castles split open so you could see knights fighting their way out with princesses. His drawings were so detailed and vivid that everyone was hooked. But Jacob started changing again. That new energy never left him. It just kept building. His eyes grew wider, he slept less, and he became erratic, even frightening. The crowds grew, and so did his shows. He'd draw non-stop, creating scenes that bled into one another. The content got wilder, more bizarre, more grotesque. And Jacob, he got more indulgent, drinking, womanizing. Some women who stayed with him said they'd wake up at night to find him sketching furiously with that stick, a huge grin on his face. What he was drawing, no one knows. Then came the night everything changed. Jacob was drunk, and the crowd asked him to draw himself. He did. The moment he finished, every figure on that wall stopped what they were doing and looked at his drawing. I remember his face, white as a sheet. He realized his mistake too late. That drawing of himself reached into its pocket, pulled out a black stick, and drew a door. Then it walked right through it, stepping off the wall and into the room. Chaos erupted. His creations poured out, attacking the crowd. Pies flew, lasers fired, monsters breathed fire. I managed to escape, but I saw Jacob being dragged by his own creations through the door his drawing had made. The auditorium burned to the ground that night. The government came, hushed it all up, took everything, and threatened us with silence. They blamed the fire on a cigarette. But we all know better. Jacob wasn't just drawing pictures. He was creating life, real life in some other dimension. He got drunk on his power, and it destroyed him. The government made 2 mistakes. They silenced us, but they didn't get everything. The ruins of the auditorium are still there. I went back once, years later. Amidst the ash, I saw something squirming. It was Jacob's hand, flailing on the wall, like it was still burning. And those creations? I don't know how many got out, but I'll tell you this. If you've seen white figures at night out in the meadows, stay away. Don't go into the tall grass. This town doesn't have ghost stories. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more.